achieve. If it's just putting information out there, we can do that. But are you saying it is a consultation in the sense that you want people to decide whether we proceed or not?
Do you wish it to be a binding decision, in other words?
No, it's not. But the decision is done, Chair. The decision
Well, it isn't until we vote for it tonight. So we need to.
Can I make a counter proposal then, that we hold a public consultation with a tick box so that the electorate can say yes, we want this, no, we don't?
That's certainly a proposal you can make, and it's up to the council whether they wish to proceed that way. But I think we just need to be clear what we're voting on before we then come to vote on how we are proceeding with the actual decision in terms of the tenderer and such that we've been looking at tonight.
So my proposal is a non-binding consultation, which is about communicating to the village where we are.
So we will have made our decision. We will have already gone down the route of going ahead, and then we go back to the village and say, oh, by the way, this is
what we have decided.
So we then but then we consult. So what's the purpose of the consultation? Because if people then come back and say yes, we agree, that's fine. If people come back and say no, they don't agree, well, we can't change because we've made the decision. So I'm just struggling to understand the reason, the purpose of the consultation. When we did it for the loan, it was because we had to show the government that we had consulted the parish before we were allowed to apply for the loan.
Chair, you can use whichever word you want. Take consultation out of it if you want, no problem for me at all. This is a communication piece of where we are, another method of communicating to the village of where we are. I can't make Melina's proposals, I can leave it, mate.
Okay. So as I understand it, Melina, you're putting forward that there is a consultation which is binding for a decision for this council in terms of whether we proceed or not.
Yes.
Okay. So members, you've got a proposal on the table then is that we would, before we make any decision, have a consultation and be guided by that as to how we proceed. Those in favour of that proposal, please show. And those against, please show. So that is clearly lost. Okay, in which case we'll move to the decision in terms of our tender, which I think a proposition was made in the closed session, which I think we need to reiterate in the open session. So I think it was Colin, you made a proposal that the proposal was that we went ahead with the tenderer that Owen has given the details of, subject to agreeing the lease with the shop.
Financial checks and references.
Okay. So that is the proposal then before members, and you seconded. So
do we name the contractor?
Owen did name the contractor, so that is in the public record. So the recommendation is that we proceed on that basis. All those in favour of that, please show. And those against, please show. And abstentions. So that is clearly carried. So we will be proceeding on those bases. As I say, we will be looking to hold our next provisional meeting is in a fortnight. By then we will be looking to have the information that is required to move ahead with that at that meeting. And obviously, post this meeting, we will be making sure that we make details of the projects that we can now make more public, available to the public through various methods. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight. Okay, that takes us on to number B, which is to update on the lease. So,
sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Have we missed my proposal completely, or are you coming back to that later on?
We can certainly take your proposal. I mean, which is that we have at some point a public meeting to consult on the decision that we have just taken. Those in favour of John's proposal, please show. 2, and those against, please show. That's clearly not carried away. Thank you. Well, Andy, sorry, we did give your apologies for the fact you were caught in traffic, but thank you for making the effort to come back with us.
Jury argument.
So that brings us to item 4B, which is just an update from the clerk on where we are with
The lease. We were hoping to have at least a draft of the lease. As in all things legal, of course, and once solicitors get hold of things, becomes slightly more complicated. There are more I's to cross and T's to cross and I's to dot. What it is, basically, the lease that we're looking at is effectively, if you can imagine when you buy a house, you exchange contracts first, and you agree that you will go ahead and do what you said you would do in the contract, barring any specific problems that arise. Well, that's what we're looking to do with this lease. We're looking to bring a lease to the council, and indeed the shop will have the chance as well. Bring, if you like, a pre-contract lease or a contract lease to the council that you need to approve and say, yes, we're happy that it goes forward to the final lease stage. The shop will need to do the same. They will need to agree that they're happy to go through to the final lease stage on those terms. And what we're hoping is that at the next meeting on 21st of February, we will have those contracts available, and the shop themselves will be able to sign them here with us, so we can sign them and they can sign them actually at that meeting on the 21st of February. So it's a public, if you like, public explanation that they're actually signing the lease and we're signing the lease. So nothing can be better than that as far as I can see. But you will have a chance to see that document before we get to that stage. So I'm hoping that within 3 days of the next meeting, you will have the opportunity to see the document, read through it, and bring to that meeting any queries that you have with that document. Okay? You happy with that?
Well, obviously, we'll try and get it around as soon as we
Yeah,
can.
might even be as early next week with the luck.
Any other queries on the lease section? Any other updates that we haven't already covered?
Nothing that I don't think we've covered the loan, we've covered the lease, we've covered the tender. They're the three main areas really. Don't think there's anything else that needs covering at this point.
Okay. In which case, we'll move on to item 6, which is the clerk's report and an update on the surgery.
Yeah, okay. Just a few things on the clerk report. We had surgery yesterday. Bob and I attended. We had 2 of our regular attendees, and most of the issues that were raised were to do with SIDS, ANPR, and general speeding issues. I should go back and address the ones that I can address. There is nothing for decision making other than I think there was a question asked about having a 3rd SID, perhaps for use in Burton Row. I think Bob and I explained to them that the current situation with our budgets and so forth, that probably wouldn't be something that we would consider this year, but could be considered in a future financial year. But and I think that was the main item for the council to consider, but that would have to go on the agenda for a discussion.
Could we put in a grant to try and get them
Could do.
for the same team? I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that's another way forward. So that was.
I think the other thing they wanted to do was have some support in terms of trying to encourage other members of the parish to either join their speedwatch group or to have speedwatch groups elsewhere within the parish. They were going to try and make contact again with the Ham Road speedwatch group that was there, but they're also going to see if we can stir up some interest in Brent Street as to whether there's a group that could be started again there.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how that goes.
So that was a surgery, and it's always useful to listen to what people's comments are, particularly on things like speeding, which is a very sensitive area. We had a request from a Mr. Matthew Roberts of Barrett's PLC, who would like to come and talk to the council about their proposals, which they're putting forward with some landowners north of Burnham for a 2,000 house development. A long way ahead, mind you. It's we're talking about somewhere in the ether. I don't see it happening anytime anytime soon, but he's asked to come to talk to the parish council about what implications that might have for this council, what concerns we may have as a village on those kind of developments, because obviously it will go into a plan eventually, Bob, that's right, isn't it? But he'd like to give us a sort of heads up on what they're proposing before they go to any form of further development.
So do we know where? Do we know if that's north, south, or?
North of where I used to live, in Oak Tree Place.
So it's basically the land between Bermondsey and Brent Knoll.
Yeah.
So, it basically goes...
From the co-op, if you like.
It dates back to the original old plan that there was of taking the road that goes from Tesco's, the sort of
Front
lane.
Lane.
Yeah, so continue from there, you get to the Basque ground, where currently you do a 90-degree turn, where you wouldn't, you go straight on. That road would then link round to more or less where the doctor's surgery is, and there would be development around that sort of area.
I was quite impressed that they were at least prepared to come and talk to parish council. That's not all developers don't do that, do they? That's fair. So
That normally means that they're pretty sure they're going to get through anyway.
So that's that. I mean, is it your wish that they should come and talk to the parish council?
Yeah.
I provisionally proposed he comes in March if the council are happy to have him here. If that suits you, I'll get him to come and give us a 20-minute.
And it would be basically on the same basis as other developers have done in the past, which is members have to be careful that you flag up concerns or things, but you don't make anything that's a decision as to yes, we'll support it, no, we won't, because ultimately, if and when there's a planning application, you need to make sure that you're not predetermined.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can certainly flag up issues that potentially you think might be worth looking into if it ever moves forward.
Just a couple of other small minor points. GDPR, I think you've got my email saying that I send out about 50 or so minutes and agendas to everybody, and under GDPR regulations I'm required to remind people that they need to reaffirm that permission annually, and I'm actually delighted to say all bar one have reaffirmed it, that's pretty good, that's encouraging. That means people are reading the documents and they are finding that a useful source of communication. And finally, Gmail is now, apart from one, Gmail is now working for everybody, and now that is now a definitive email.
Will that be, will that be now your only...
That will be the
means
default now,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, that's all I've got to say.
excellent. Working reports, in terms of, you've all had circulated, I think, the project tracker, which came around before the meeting. Any update from the footpaths team?
I had a little conversation with a member of the Diamond family about she's very concerned about the footpath going up the knoll. She's replaced some of the fencing, she's had some of the fencing replaced in order to stop the field, and people, as we know, continually trashing it, saying that it's too muddy and they don't want to walk on the footpath, so they're using the field. She's getting a bit distressed about it, and I said I would bring it back to the meeting, but I don't know what we can do. I just said I would report it back. There is a problem there with people, they're literally trashing the fence, stamping it down, and she says no, it's the point where she can't stop the field because livestock won't stay in. So
Okay. I mean, ultimately the fencing is the responsibility of the landowner. But I think it's difficult currently, as you say, because I think because we've had such wet weather, that path has been so muddy that people have had to get off it. Hopefully, as things start to dry out, that might improve.
well, she said she's replaced the fencing a couple of times, and people just stamp it down and
Okay,
bit
we'll
naughty, but-
keep an eye on it. Any other footpath issues? No. Okay. Highways. Anyone got any reports? Just to report back, you may have noticed there was a a lot of water down at the A38 junction.
Yes.
We reported it to Highways. Highways reported it to the Water Board, who came out and repaired it. Apparently it was leaking something in the region of 2,000 litres an hour. So there was a lot of water going out there. They have now stopped it, so hopefully that's now sorted. But they will. Certainly they dug a hole, and it's not as wet as it was. So
No, I went past today and I thought, well, that's still wet, but
yeah. We'll keep an eye. If it looks like it comes back again, let us know, because we'll flag it back to Highways. But they were, to be fair to them, they responded within less than a week and actually did the work, which was good. Anything else on Highways that anyone's got? Nope. Okay. Who was on the village green?
It was pretty well okay. The harass fence thing has been moved, which was an obstacle at the beginning of the month, isn't. There is some graffiti drawing on the slide, the little slide. Quite a bit of it graffiti actually on there. And the area around the roundabout, which was repaired, is okay, but some of the rest of it is developing some cracks. Yeah, so the patching looks right, and the paintwork obviously is really shabby on the roundabout and that, but I was going to say, I don't know if we could all have a working party and do that, because we could probably do something with that. The mugger, apart from the fact that the basketball hoop is really dirty, there was piles and piles of rubbish behind it, and every time I went down there I picked up rubbish. But I think the problem is, because there's a bench there, there's no problem, because there's loads of kids which use it, which is really nice, but because they've got to walk all the way over to the other side of the bin, they're obviously not bothering. I don't know if we can do anything about the reciting of the bin or something, I don't know, to maybe encourage them to use it, and obviously the car park's very weedy, and the ivy is taking over the Brent Knoll notice board, and there's an issue with the bushes. Toilets were actually clean, hand dryers not working, even the men's toilets were clean. But every time I went in there, the taps were all on full bore running. So again, probably a prankster, but then when we have the taps redone, I'm guessing there'll be ones that stop or whatever.
Okay.
That's it.
Mr. Chairman,
Can I have that? Thank you.
and forgive me coming in on this, the car park at the top of Hill Lane does have litter in there, and I don't know what the answer is. That there is a litter bin there, as you know, but there is litter
Yeah, I
all
keep
around the
picking it up
edges,
as well.
which is I don't know what the best thing to do is.
No, I think to some extent, if we can ask whoever's on the village green duty, I think needs to just check the car park up there as well. I think David, you're next in line. Yeah. So if we can do that.
Could we get one of these? Is it worth getting one of these litter picker handles that we can take up?
We can get one with it as like a spike and nail on the end of a thing and just spike it and put it. I picked up loads of litter up there over the last few months. And
Yeah.
but yeah, you don't want to be handling it in
No.
case some of it's dog poop out and all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of the play equipment, we have requested a couple of quotes for repainting, so I'm hoping I can bring those to the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll try and make a decision on that. Anything else on Village Green or Car Park?
Oh, well, but yeah, that graffiti on the side. I don't know if we can get some nail varnish remover and get it off or something. I'm not sure.
That's on the...
So on the little slide up here that goes up to the, all the apparatus going along the thing.
I mean, you mentioned there's a need for a working party in terms of doing some stuff on
The
there.
bushes, so perhaps we'll have a go at
If we
it
have a
then.
look at that at the same
Yeah.
time?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
And you're happy to pull together a working party?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, if everyone's happy with that, I don't think audit staff
No,
group have met.
Hasn't met.
Buildings work group did, and you've had the notice, the
Shop
notes
working group, all that's been
circulated, and the
circulated,
shop
yeah.
working group has been
Yeah.
circulated too. So that takes us on to the report from Somerset Council, which, bearing in mind the time, I will keep short. But basically the main report is the finances still. Somerset, as you may remember at the last meeting, I reported that they were looking at two things, a number of things to try and close the gap, a couple of which were asking the government if they could put the council tax up by more than the limit, which the government have come back and said no. I think the view was they couldn't say it to one council and not to all councils, so the council also has applied for this capitalisation project, which basically means that they can use capital for revenue spending. We were advised today that the sum that they've asked for is approximately £40 million, which will cover the shortfall for this year. That also takes into account the fact they haven't got the 5% they were hoping to do on the council tax. But they have also asked for a further £40 million facility on the grounds of the likely costs of redundancy payments for a complete restructure of the council. It was talked about at the executive today that they're probably looking at something in the region of 20 to 26% of the staff will have to go. The process is going to be through voluntary redundancy in the first instance, and to see what the take-up is. There are certain sections of the council which they will not allow voluntary redundancies from, so things like planners, certain social workers, basically jobs that are difficult to fill anyway, and so that will mean that the hit on those sections of the council that aren't protected will be even greater, but it is going to be a substantial change to the way the council operates. In terms of budget, even with those extras, there are something in excess of 200 or so savings that have been put forward. The executive made some changes to the list that was published a couple of weeks ago today, but there are a full range of savings. One of the ones that doesn't affect us particularly, because we've got a hybrid recycling centre, but Cheddar Recycling Centre is potentially up for closure. They have, in response to requests from the scrutiny committee, gone away and they are re-looking at that to see if they can find other savings within the waste and recycling section rather than actually closing the centres. But they'll come back once they've done that piece of work. But they are in the situation where they have to make a decision. Will be at our full council meeting on the 20th of February. One of the problems that they have is the government won't actually tell them whether they've got this capitalisation permission or not until March. So the decision of the council will be subject to getting that ability, because without that they cannot budget, they cannot balance their budget, and then that will mean a Section 114 notice and in effect calling in the government commissioners. So again, they're still trying to work to avoid that. What this does mean, though, when you take out this capitalisation is, of course, you can use that money this year, but it's gone for next year. So, as we stand at the moment, the use of reserves that is going into the budget this year will leave the council with, I think it was just shy of £32 million worth of reserves. The minimum they are allowed to have is 30 million. So, if they have other expenditure that comes in this year over the sum of 2 million more than they're expecting, again they're in trouble because they will hit that buffer. So it is a very tight budget. It is going to mean a lot of services being cut back and reduced, and it's not a particularly great situation. In terms of, as I mentioned before, we had obviously the issue relating to the whole bringing together of the 5 councils. They have budgeted in their figures at the moment. They've already had about £9 million worth of savings from that. The other 9 million, which relates to staff redundancies, which haven't happened yet, will be rolled into this other redundancy programme as well. So there are still savings coming through from the merger of the 5 councils, but it is just a really difficult situation, and the fact that in effect they're borrowing this year to cover revenue means that next year, when the budget needs to be set, they're currently looking somewhere around about £100 million shortfall again for next year. So it is
So total budget? So
about 500.
20%.
Yeah. that's the net budget. There is the gross is a lot more, but then they get a lot of grants in that help cover other things. But it is, yeah, it's a significant sum, which is why they're having to look at this full restructure of the council to see whether there is a viable model that continues. And they are having ongoing discussions with government about funding as well. So watch this space, and we'll keep notifying you. There will be further devolution coming to the parishes. So a number of services are being passed down. So, for example, the towns where there is a CCTV, that is going to be funded by the town councils rather than by what was the Somerset Council. That's saving something circa £500,000. But so, for example, in Bridgewater, who have got a lot of CCT coverage, their council tax is going up by 160% this year to £260 per Band D. Yeovil have taken on a number of things in their area. They're going to be over £300 per Band D. And in fact, a number of the town councils' council tax this year is going to be higher than the district council's council tax used to be in their particular areas. So there is significant devolving of responsibility and costs. That's where, again, we put money obviously aside this year because we don't know what's going to happen with us. We've heard, I think it's approaching a 10% increase in the cost of the dog bin collections. Those sort of things will be passed down to us. We don't know yet about things like rubbish bins. Currently, the old districts used to do that for free. You may start to find that there will be a request that if you want bins empty, you have to pay like you do for the dog bins. All those things are on the table at the moment because literally they just need to find other ways of finding savings to the council itself. And of course, where they're capped, the towns, city and parishes aren't. And so a lot of parishes and towns have significantly increased their council tax this year to make provision for those things to come down. Any questions?
Do you think that, supposing all these costs are passed down to us, if the balance swings back the other way, will those costs be absorbed again, or once they've given them up to us, that's it?
I would be very surprised if it ever got taken back up the other way. I mean, what they're trying to do in some instances is devolving the actual responsibility. In others, rather like CCTV, they're continuing to do it, but are asking for it to be funded by, and I think that's likely to be the way that it continues, because at least then they've got the critical mass to do something, whereas if you break it up into little bits, sometimes that just won't work. One of the disappointing things with CCTV is the police, who make great use of it, their contribution to the budget is £10,000 a year, and that's all. So there are discussions with the police, but at the moment they've got obviously issues with their funding as well, so they're not looking to voluntarily come forward. Okay, and on to our financial report, which is slightly less...
less catastrophic.
Yes.
We've just got two payments, but the statutory payments, first of all, for February are as per previously. So the things that we have to set aside each month, and which are done by standing order or direct debit. So that just to now, come next month, we should be looking to approve then the statutories for next year. But at the moment, these are the ones that were agreed last April. So I just need your approval to continue with those.
Can I have a proposer? Thank you. All those in favour, please show. That's clearly carried.
And then there are two. Thank you. There are two variable payments. Building regulations fee for the building project. Paul has obviously submitted the building regulations documentation, and we have a bill for that for £1,200 from the Somerset Council.
That's including that.
Including that.
Yeah.
So £1,000 plus 200 VAT. So that's and that's retrospective because we've already paid it. But we have to. Some of these things you have to pay sometimes. Parish Hall room hire, it takes us up to the end of last year, and that's £145. So they're just the two variable payments this month.
Okay. Can I have a proposal that we pay those? Thank you, Andy. All those in favour, please show. Abstain on that.
Yeah, that's the majority.
Yeah.
And then there are no other financial matters at this meeting.
Okay. So matters of consideration, AMPR update on delivery and installation. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, basically, as you know, we had the AMPR delivered. Colin took it in to his garage for us kindly, and it's picked up from Stuart Nichols, our AMPR guy. He put it up very, very swiftly. Actually, he did it within a couple of days. Very, very efficient in Burton Row. But we had to get him to take it down again, simply because we hadn't actually added it to our insurance policy. Because it's a substantial piece of kit and it is vulnerable to being vandalised or whatever. So we decided to, take it down, let's get it insured, and then we're covered. So we've now got a new part of our policy which covers SIDS and AMPR, so it covers both parts of it. So that's now ready to go back up again, but we're still waiting for the police to give us a little bit of guidance on the data recovery side of it. But I think Colin mentioned, Bob mentioned earlier on, when we were talking about it, that we could put it up with a set speed limit on it, or a threshold of 50 miles an hour. But bearing in mind this won't be going anywhere, this data will not be being published to the police at this stage, because it's a trial exercise. Okay, so it is purely to see how the thing works, what we deem from it in terms of information, and also further information from the police on what they'd like us to do with the data.
So how does the threshold, it means it only triggers out after 50 miles an hour?
Yeah.
So why don't we put it at 30 and see what everything
So when we had the original discussions with the police, their view was they wanted to start at a high threshold and work their way down.
Okay.
Because where they'd had reports of similar things elsewhere, if you put it in at a low level, they can get completely swamped with the amount of data that's coming through and they can't cope with it. So the reason they want to do this is it's not, as we've discussed before, it's not a fine generator. It will generate letters in the same way that the Speedwatch group do. So they are wanting to use this as a tool for slowing people, not catching people as such. So their idea is they start at the higher level and then they work their way down, so that it's there as a sort of educational device as much as it is about enforcement.
But I thought when we put the other ones up, we were able to get a report out and see the peaks and troughs of the speeding, so we can encourage them to come and do speed traps.
Yeah.
So that will still be the situation with the SIDS. The difference with the AMPR is the other thing is by setting it at that, you're not acting as something that's keeping like a big brother watch on everyone who's driving past it. It's only triggered by those people who are significantly speeding. So it's again trying to reassure people that we're not using this as a method of tracking vehicles. This is a method of slowing people down.
And of course that data won't be available to anybody at this stage. Well, I mean, it'll obviously be coming down the line to me, but under the data controller's responsibility for the council, my task is to keep the lid on it at this stage.
And again, what we will do is we'll put something out publicity-wise just to let people know what this little yellow box is that they're going to see in the parish and what it is doing and what it's not.
So make a note of all your registration numbers.
Okay, any other questions on that one? So, annual parish meeting.
Yeah, just ideas. I mean, we batted around a few ideas last time. We were thinking, I think the shop perhaps to do a presentation on where they are at this stage, for us to do a build presentation. And then obviously we came out yesterday about Stuart Nichols doing a piece on the AMPR and how that works. So there's 2 or 3 ideas there, but are there any other ideas? To some extent, actually, the communications thing that John was referring to earlier, of course, could be covered under some form of communication session that we decide to do. And it's up to people whether they come along to the meeting then, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's what I got on the front of the Brent News.
I would just at this point just remind members that the Brent Knoll News is an independent magazine. It is not paid for, edited or looked after by the parish council or the parish church. It is a standalone editorial separate item, and it would be wrong for people to. In other parishes, the parish council often will fund and run the village magazine. That's never been the case in this parish, whether it's been with the current editor or their predecessors. So it is not something that is linked to either this body or the church, which again some people think it's a parish magazine, therefore it's the church. It's not, it's just an independent village magazine that goes around for residents. The next one is Ash Dieback quotes. You'll remember we talked about, we were approached a little while ago by a resident who is adjacent to the village green, who had concerns that their tree that was on our land affecting them had ash dieback. We had that confirmed by Sedgemoor as it was at the time, and I was sent to get quotes, which I did. We then, if you remember, we waited because we were trying to get hold of whoever did the tree work for National Grid, because it's close to their box, and we hoped that they might be able to come in with a quote that would be competitive. So we now have 3 quotes. One of those is for £2,000 plus VAT. The next one we had was for £1,600 total, and the third one, which was the contractors who do the work for National Grid, came in at £2,500. So the
Inclusive of VAT?
no, plus VAT. So the one that we obviously have, which is the lowest, was one that was the person that we were put in touch with originally by the people who next door to the tree. We went back to them just to confirm that quote, which he gave us back in August of last year, was still valid, and he has said yes, it is. We also confirmed with him that because it's a TPO tree, he would be responsible for doing the application for the TPO, the tree preservation order. He has said yes, he's happy to do that as part of it. We did have a previous contractor who, if you remember, we'd had a quote for £1,500. They withdrew their tender because they didn't want to do that element of the work, and that was back from August of last year as well. So the 3 quotes we have in front of us now are the £1,600, the £2,000 plus VAT, or we get the VAT back anyway, and the £2,500. So also just to mention, you'll remember that the resident concerned offered that they would contribute a sum of money which would help offset the cost, a proportion of the cost. I've got Andy and then Colin.
Sorry, just a quickie. They are happy that their work must coincide with the work of National Grid. It's got to, hasn't it? Because they're working so close to that transformer. Their comment was that they have worked with National Grid on other sites before, so they are happy to liaise with National Grid as to when it is required. Yes.
Yeah.
Just with the logs, usually these guys take them away. We've got a number of residents that buy logs. Is there an opportunity for us to recover some of our funds by moving the logs off?
Potentially. So the situation is, the quote that we've got here at the moment is for all the brash to be taken away, so the little bits. They would be prepared to deposit the wood, and we've got a landowner who has said they would be prepared to have that wood put on their land. We could then look at having some contributions. If people wanted to make a donation, I think we would have to go down that route. We couldn't get into the situation of selling, because we're not going to be kiln dried and all this sort of stuff, but it would be up to people to, we will make it known that we can have, in effect, donations, which again would help us offset, but I can't guarantee what that would be. And what we can guarantee is we know that it's the 1,600 less. Did we say publicly what the contribution was last time?
I think we did.
Okay, so we had the offer of a £500 contribution, so in effect a net cost to us is £1,100. And then if we get anything else, then
It helps.
It will help offset.
I think it's more the fact that we've got a lot of residents buying logs, so if we can move them to residents, at least it's assisting.
Yeah. So we're looking for a proposal.
Let's propose the 1,600.
Okay. So all those of that, please show. That's unanimous. That's clearly carried. Thank you very much. Which takes us to flood considerations and quotes for the land at the rear of the church. So, David.
Do you want to start on that?
So as you'll remember again, David and myself we said we would get some information about works that could be done. We had some issues raised on two fronts relating to this. One was, you'll remember when we had the heavy rain, there was flooding that took place in various areas of Church Lane with houses affected and the church, a lot of surface water. Anyone who's walked the path behind the church recently will also seen the damage that was done at that stage to the footpath itself. The surface has been, well, ripped apart in various places. So we've spoken to a local contractor to get some idea as to what could be done. We would be looking potentially for initially some clearance work because the growth has come in from either side of the footpath, so it will be clearing the footpath back. That in itself, I think we have had an estimate of 600. So, which is the land which basically runs between the two kissing gates, so from Church Lane up to the kissing gate before you start going up the steep slope. That, if we were going to do it, would need to be done before the bird nesting season because otherwise the work can't be carried out this year. Beyond that, we would be having to look at further works which would involve the clearance of an existing ditch which runs alongside the footpath, so in effect reinstating what would have been the original water course which has over time become blocked. And were those works to be carried out, that will in itself cause damage to the footpath, so we would need to be looking at resurfacing the footpath behind as well, which, to be frank, we probably need to do anyway, bearing in mind the damage that's been done to it. David, do you want to go next and then Colin? David?
I don't mind.
Well,
Okay,
actually,
Colin.
David might answer my question.
Yeah.
If you dig up the water course that is behind the church, where's the water going to go?
Right, so it's been looked at in quite a lot of detail, but there's still more to do with the landowner and the contractor would like to see me and Bob and potentially some representation from the church. But basically it will be a case of taking the water, any flow from the hill, and it's sort of future-proofing it as well, and it will take it all the way alongside the path, all the way down, and it will drop it on just about into a drain at the bottom by Cedar Close.
All right,
So it will take water from quite a lot. It is quite a sort of big scheme, but at the same time it's got the potential to sort of deal with flooding of the church, Old Court Bay, the stables, all the water that goes down that, which has obviously been quite an issue.
And Niles House as
Yeah,
well. the top
yeah.
from them. Yeah,
And it will
okay.
deal with this, but it does involve, quite opening up this ditch and some piping, and there's some quite big trees and things that it's going round. It's not taking it out, but this clearance that Bob spoke about, basically we've got to do something if we're going to do it before the 1st of March.
Yeah.
So it enables, it's obviously, it's going to take it back quite some way, so we can do this, but as Bob said, the footpath, he basically said it will be destroyed by what he tracking up and down there, or what's left of it, because it's in a pretty poor state. So he's given the price for the whole job, including the clearing of 7,000, which is quite a lot, but it is a lot of work, but that's including this 600, so it's 6,000.
Is that including the installation of the pipe down to the bottom drain?
Yeah, it's all, everything's in, but it's obviously a lot of money, but we don't have to proceed with that right at the moment because of monetary constraints, but it would be nice to get it cleared back at least.
Amanda.
Will that sort, because I know at the moment, from the bottom kissing gate that goes down the steep hill, that's like a river.
Yeah.
Will that deal with that problem as well?
Yeah,
So it will
Because it's
eliminate
coming
all
out,
the
when
problems.
me and Bob have
Yeah.
previously dealt with water coming out the
Yeah.
footpath. They'll
And
get
that-
that.
So that footpath, like, so it goes from the kissing gate at the bottom of the church wall up and round the corner. Does that footpath, who actually owns the land that footpath is on?
Mills Roberts.
He owns all the
Yeah,
the
All
footpath.
of it, between the two gates.
Okay.
But I think in essence what we'd like to ask permission from the council at the moment is to go ahead with the clearance on the
Yeah.
basis that if we're going to need to do something to, if you remember, it's a few years ago, but we stoned
Yeah.
that footpath behind
Yeah.
the church previously, and that's what's now
Yeah,
broken
good
up.
idea.
So in a way, if we could do the clearance now, even if we're not able to get on with the work immediately until we can sort out some further funding, it leaves us the opportunity to
Yeah,
get on with it when we
stages.
want
Good
to.
idea.
Whereas if we don't do the clearance now,
Yeah.
we won't be able to do it for another
Right.
year because we'll hit the bird nesting season.
No, well,
Andy.
Just on that piece, we had the piece up by your old, you said your old
Yes.
house. We've got the
the
metal work,
yeah,
which is
Metal
50% covered, and we've got to dig that out. So at some point, that's the other piece of work we do as a working group, or we get somebody in to
I think
clear those
that might
ditches.
be being taken care of by someone else.
Okay.
Who has said they were paid to do that, so I think that's in hand. But
Okay.
if it's not, we'll bring that back to the council.
that's all right. We'll drag you out when you fall down it again.
Yeah.
Like last time. I was just going to say then that doesn't actually, it doesn't involve the church. It doesn't
No.
concern the church. So it's nothing to do with the church at all. That's all. Just clarify
No.
that. Yeah.
Why can't we get the church to make a contribution? They don't contribute to anything.
They might do. Good. Yeah.
We've got time to have that.
Yeah.
Because certainly we're protecting the ground,
Yeah.
aren't we?
And it may well be again that we can look to try and find some other funding as well. But I mean, as I say, the initial thing is, do we get on and do the clearance to give us that ability to move ahead?
Yeah.
I think that makes sense, but I do think we should approach others
Yeah.
to make a contribution for doing that work, if we're going to do it properly.
Okay. Well, I propose that we get the clearing done initially, and then we look at other avenues for
Funding.
yeah.
And that was the six, just to confirm, the
Yeah,
600.
600.
Okay. So we've got recommendation then to go ahead with the clearance either side of the footpath along that section for the sum of £600. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you. As I say, we'll get further information and keep reporting back and certainly look at it.
Bob, that's on the basis that we now look at the £6,000-7,000, whatever the price, but we look for contributions
Yes.
from other
Yeah.
people.
But we've not signed up to the £7,000
No.
yet. That will come back to this
So that's
council.
a piece of work to be
Absolutely.
done.
I think it's important though that we do this work, because if you clear it, it's going to make it easy to be further washed away if you get heavy rainfalls, because you'll have cleared ground and it's going
It's
to
got to
run
be
off
done in summer,
easier.
isn't it?
So it's got to be undertaken.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Which neatly brings us on to the flood action group, David.
I haven't done anything, but I think Amanda has ideas, but we were going to look at the original flood plan, and
We've had a little chat about it, and we thought that it would be a good idea to go through all the original documents, pull out the pieces that haven't, put together a new plan based on experiences of recent problems, and maybe get a laminated sheet that we would give out to volunteers with, like, this is the plan, this is that funny?
No,
This
it's
is
been
the
done.
map.
Yeah, John
This is
Harper
the
did
map.
it.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
I've got a file with
Yeah,
all the
Yes, I know you have. Yeah.
Yeah, you
No,
can
but
have
new,
it with pleasure. Yeah.
with new contacts. So
Yeah, it needs a,
yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to
Yeah.
be.
in the event of that road can be closed up, because obviously we said, like, we can't. We know where the drains are up there. We know how to do that. We can't clear the drains down by heavy work. We could shut the road there, and just various things that we could say in an emergency. Follow these procedures.
There is a point. One of the pieces that caused the problems was the highway had gritted the uphill all the way up, all the stones ran down and filled the drain.
Yeah.
So, you know, the highway again needs to be making a contribution to ensure that we don't have floods. Because that, if you know, the steepness of that hill, putting loose gravel on there in rain is a bit daft by anybody's
It's
consideration.
still quite dangerous actually, because I was working in Collintown today, and you can hear the cars come down, they hit the brakes on the corner, and you can hear them. It's yeah.
So in terms of the flood action plan group, we're saying that David and yourself are going to liaise with Colin to get the documentation that's
Yeah.
currently available and pull that together.
Yeah.
You've got, I think, Owen's got a list of those who volunteered
Yeah.
to be
And then
available.
have a meeting with everybody that's volunteered and
You count me in on
go
it.
through the equipment that we've got and how we intend to use it and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And there's a second piece of that. I think we do need to get in contact with highways because the gravel at the bottom needs removing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to be on.
We
That
It
should be
is-
on
it
site.
is
did come
dangerous.
up at the last
Yeah.
meeting.
If I send you the emails from those who've volunteered,
Yeah.
some of them are in my head, but most of them sent me an email.
Yeah, then we can work
And
on
it-
it.
And to be honest, it may be, without making you a star of the show, it might be the annual parish meeting might be the place to just update people
Well,
as
that's
to
a
what
good
the new
idea.
plan is.
Showcase it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
David?
We've been kindly offered as well, Kenny Gordon and Dave Gordon have offered if we've got any issues and we need plant and machinery, they will come and do it for nothing in the event of an emergency, which I thought was very good.
Fantastic.
Very nice. Yeah,
Good.
and-
Yeah, they did turn up that night.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And to be honest, he went into the Burton Road one as well, to
Yeah,
sort
yeah, he
that out
did.
where there was flooding
Yeah.
down there, so
And it's very local, so it's very
excellent.
useful.
So our members are happy then that we proceed on that basis?
You should have the file.
Could I just ask, in terms of the file that you've got, is that physical or is there an electronic version of it as well?
There is an electronic version which I gave sent
Okay.
across to you.
Because that's a much shorter
How
book
did
than the file you
how did
showed
you
us.
send it
Was-
across to me? On a
Pardon?
stick? Did you put it on a stick or?
No, I sent it to you by email.
That was only a few pages.
Yeah, that wasn't
Yeah.
full, that's only a partial one compared
Oh,
to
well,
what you
I'll-
showed us,
I'll
which was
give
that
you the
big
whole lot,
document. so-
Because I think you're going to have to type it up probably.
Yeah.
We can use it to dam up the bottom of the road.
Okay,
Yeah. But
everyone happy then on that one? Excellent. Matters of report. Jane? Hello?
The thing about the first aid training, I've had a conversation with Jane Sinnott, who runs the guides, and she's got a contact for having there's a defibrillator training and basic first aid involved with it. There won't be any cost. She's going to find out the date and let me know what it is, and then anyone who wants to can go and join in. But I'll know that next meeting.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda for next time. Okay. John?
No.
Nina? Andy?
For next agenda, can we have a discussion on the future of the telephone box outside the shop?
Okay. David?
No.
Colin?
No.
I've not got anything. Owen, anything else that you want to add? In which case that brings us to the end. Thank you all very much for tonight, and we'll close the meeting at just after 9. Thank you.